Hello, I'm Igor Kule and I'm pleased to welcome you to another edition of Eastern Europe Review. In this program, we delve into the key issues affecting post-Soviet countries, particularly Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. This program is a joint effort from BELSAT TV and TVP World. And let's see what's on the agenda today. Dictator Lukashenka on trial. Lithuania files a case with the International Criminal Court.
We have provided a lot of evidences that these alleged crimes against humanity are being committed by Lukashenka regime. So natural consequence of that, of course, arrest warrants that could be issued.
Nazi organizations gaining ground in Russia. What is the government's response? And laws against the people, the challenges of living near a unique lake.
They think we're stupid, that we're here as pests and that we're harming BELSAT and the ecology, and that we're harming our own land.
Alexander Lukashenka and his accomplices may soon face arrest warrants. Lithuanian authorities have appealed to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, requesting an investigation into the crimes committed by the Lukashenka regime against Belarusians. While this doesn't guarantee justice yet, it marks the beginning of a long multi-year journey toward restoring fairness. Belarusians who have suffered under the regime are calling this event historic.
Lithuania has submitted a request to the International Criminal Court in The Hague to investigate the regime of Alexander Lukashenka for alleged crimes against humanity. Belarusian democratic forces and those who have suffered under the regime have been waiting for this since 2020.
For the first time in the history of Belarus, cases related to crimes against the Belarusian people have been officially transferred to the International Criminal Court in The Hague.
The evidence was gathered by the team of the National Anti-Crisis Management led by Pavel Latushka. In collaboration with other human rights initiatives, they presented this evidence to Lithuania. Lithuanian officials then supplemented the data with their legal expertise.
The first next step is if the prosecutor is satisfied that certain tests are met, tests of jurisdiction, tests of admissibility and tests of the interests of justice to proceed, then the prosecutor will begin a formal investigation. And if the formal investigation concludes to a reasonable grounds to believe standard that crimes against humanity are being committed by the Belarusian regime, partly in the territory of Lithuania, then the prosecutor will ask the judges for an arrest warrant for those that are found to be responsible.
The first reason chosen as the basis for submitting materials to the International Court is the deportation of Belarusians. According to UN estimates, due to the regime's policy of repression and intimidation, hundreds of thousands of people, at least 3.5% of Belarus's population, have been forced to flee the country. The second reason concerns the persecution of Belarusians abroad, which includes threats to their lives and health, persecution of relatives who remain in Belarus, deprivation of property, politically motivated sentences in absentia, and denial of the opportunity to receive documents abroad, such as passports. Additionally, hate speech has been directed at those who were forced to flee.
Reflecting on our past, we see that when the regime committed crimes, there were also political prisoners and instances of torture. Yet the regime always emerged unaffected. I believe they were confident that this time would be no different and that there would be no consequences.
This now makes it possible to hold not only Lukashenka, but everyone involved in these crimes accountable.
We have that expectations that if prosecutor decides to open investigation, and we have provided a lot of evidences that these alleged crimes against humanity are being committed by Lukashenka regime. So natural consequence of that, of course, arrest warrants that could be issued, or at least that prosecutor first appeals to the panel of judges so that these arrest warrants are being issued.
Poland has responded to Lithuania's appeal to the International Criminal Court. Now the question arises whether Poland, which has also suffered from Lukashenka's regime, particularly through hybrid attacks on its border, will take similar action.
We agree that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the Lukashenka regime may have committed crimes as defined in the Statute of the International Criminal Court. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in cooperation with other relevant entities, has been examining this case, and this process will continue.
Filing an application to the court is only the beginning of the process. But if the prosecutor decides to start the case, it will be impossible to stop.
Neo-Nazi movements such as Russian National Unity are gaining ground in Russia with a recent congress held in Rostov-on-Don. Despite government claims of combating Nazism abroad, these groups continue to operate, organizing paramilitary training and patrols. While the state officially distances itself from these movements, local authorities sometimes tolerate or indirectly support them. This raises concerns about their growing influence and role in Russian society.
One of Russia's largest nationalist movements has held a congress in Rostov-on-Don. The organization, called Russian National Unity, has announced that it has now been officially registered and operates in several regions across the country. While Russia claims to be combating Nazis abroad, neo-fascist and neo-Nazi groups continue to operate within its own borders.
Delegates from 12 regions of Russia attended the Congress. Each regional leader was granted the authority to represent and carry out the activities of the Russian National Unity Organization within their respective regions.
Founded in the early 1990s by Alexander Barkashov, a Russian Orthodox, fundamentalist and a neo-Nazi, Russian National Unity, RNU, gained attention for its use of a modified swastika and Nazi salutes. The group became prominent during the 1993 conflict against Boris Yeltsin. Though it later fractured, it continued to exist in a semi-legal state. Now that it claims to be officially registered, RNU is planning to establish its own units, train young people, and maintain public order.
The organization will conduct its statutory activities in the following areas: formation of a reserve unit for territorial defense and volunteer corps, patriotic education of youth, tactical and medical training, maintaining public order.
The movement's size remains unclear, but more than 20,000 people follow its public pages in Rostov. Its members openly admit to participating in the war in Donbass since 2014 and are currently collecting aid for the Russian military. Another group advocating for Slavic purity, the so-called Russian Community, has more than 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Its members regularly patrol streets and even schools in search of cultural mixing, associating themselves with Russia's investigative committee and its head, Alexander Bastrikin. Equally active are members of the neo-Nazi Russian Squad, who claimed on October the 1st to have conducted a joint raid with the law enforcement, targeting migrants in the outskirts of Tyumen. They claim that these raids will now take place on a regular basis.
Our goal is to ensure security on the home front while the special military operation is underway. During the raid, 21 migrants were checked, 13 of whom did not have documents to prove their legal status in Russia. All were taken to the police for further investigation. Not all groups with ideologies similar to neo-Nazism take a clear stance on the situation in Ukraine. Their views vary. Some, like Russian Community or Northern Man, either support or don't oppose the events and are tolerated to some extent by the authorities. However, this tolerance often comes from local authorities who tend to avoid confrontation with these tough-looking groups.
Some officials are openly nationalist. Last week, the governor of Vologda took the stage at his own inauguration to the nationalist anthem Sky of the Slavs and chanted the slogan, "We're Russians, God is with us." Meanwhile, the Russian government officially distances itself from the neo-Nazis. The Russian March, which had occurred annually since the mid-2000s, was banned in 2020 after being labeled an extremist event, despite its previous focus on the rights of ethnic Russians and criticism of migration policies.
Residents around LakeBaikal, the world's deepest and largest freshwater lake, are facing a harsh reality as a new Russian law designed to protect the environment is leaving them without essential resources. Unable to collect firewood for the winter or find burial grounds for their loved ones, these communities, many living in century-old homes, now classified within a protected zone, are calling on the State Duma for help. But so far, their pleas have been met with silence.
Lake Baikal, located in eastern Siberia, is a unique natural body of water. It is the deepest lake on Earth and the largest natural reservoir of fresh water. It is home to thousands of species of fish, animals and aquatic plants, 2/3 of which are found nowhere else. To safeguard this natural treasure, Russia passed a special federal law in 1999. Over the past 25 years, this law has been amended several times, and with each change, life has become increasingly difficult for local residents. Recently, under the guise of forest protection, residents of villages on the lake's shores were banned from collecting firewood. Many fear they will freeze in their homes this winter with nothing to heat their stoves.
That's all the firewood I have for the winter, the bare minimum, and it's already the second year that it's all dried up. Maybe it's enough for half a winter, although I doubt it. At best, it'll last until November.
The amendments, which have tightened the environmental protection regime to the maximum, were adopted several years ago. As a result, people who were recently given land by the government to build homes now find themselves trapped. They managed to construct their houses, but the law now prohibits them from building new roads and power lines in the area by the lake's shores.
When it rains, you can't drive up or walk at all. The children have to wade through so much mud to get to school. The same issue applies to the power line. The voltage constantly drops, and we temporarily extended it at our own expense. However, the voltage fluctuates so much that the equipment doesn't work at all. Light bulbs aren't working, and we can't cook any food.
The forests surrounding the villages have been designated as protected areas. However, forest fires break out near Lake Baikal every year. It is forbidden to cut down trees to create a safe buffer zone between the forest and homes. As a result, houses burn down, while village leaders are held criminally responsible.
Here in Chermushki, the whole village burned down. The head of the village was held criminally responsible, and there were no proper fire breaks in place either.
The situation has become absurd. People living in homes along the shore built by their grandparents are being evicted by court orders, with their houses deemed illegal. It is forbidden to expand village cemeteries located within the so-called recreation zone, leaving local residents with nowhere to bury their dead. They think we're stupid, that we're here as pests and that we're harming Baikal and the ecology, and that we're harming our own land. Residents of the Baikal region have repeatedly appealed to various authorities, including deputies of the State Duma, seeking protection. To address existing contradictions, amendments to the law on the protection of Lake Baikal were proposed in 2023. However, the Russian parliament has yet to take action. Frustrated and desperate, some locals jokingly suggest that they should ask China for help. Until the 17th century, this territory belonged to the Chinese Empire, and even today, Baikal is often referred to in China as the Great Northern Sea of the Celestial Empire. Chinese tourists visiting the area have expressed a desire to see it return to their homeland.
And we are out of time for today. Tune in again next Sunday for more from Eastern Europe Review. I'm Igor Kulay. Keep watching TVP World.